Hey guys, thought I would do a video down here with Lena because some people have said you don't really show Lena very much. Well, that's true. So I thought I'd include her in this video while we work on some questions that come in rather often. So because they come in so often, I thought I'll make a video that answers these questions in a way that hopefully maybe I wouldn't have to answer them in text anymore. Because I'll either get an email or a private message or a comment on YouTube or a comment on Facebook. So I think it's just going to be beneficial to put something in a video. So I'm going to get started on these. I've tried to group some of these questions. I'm probably not going to get to them all, but tried to group them in a way that would answer more than one at the same time because some of them are quite related. The first one, because I was down this way, just topping these two guys up with some hay, I thought, let's start with food. So one person says, how often do you feed your horses and what kind of grain do you feed? We don't do a lot of grain. The carbohydrates that come from some of these grains and some of the materials that's in some of these grains is actually no good for the horses. It's been proven time and time again, and yet it still seems to be widely recognized that horses need grain. Actually, what they do need is some of the minerals and vitamins that we can give them with grain. So the grain buckets, or the buckets of stuff that we give, usually is some alfalfa cubes, a bit of beet pulp. We're thinking of alfalfa because it's got protein. We're thinking of beet pulp because it just has some fiber in it and it sort of puffs up, but not a lot of nutritional information or material in beet pulp, just for the fiber. Salt, some mineral mix, and then maybe a splash. I mean, really just a tiny splash of just those sweet feed grains. It really is sort of like getting a tiny little donut, you know, a little bit of dessert. Does the horse need it? No. Is it kind of nice for them? Yes. It's no different than giving them piles of carrots or piles of apples. Lots of sugar in those things as well. But it's not a main staple or a feed. In fact, our horses almost completely I hate hay bags, I have to be honest. I mean, watching that, you just think, there's got to be a better way. Anyhow, mostly hay. The hay that we feed is a Timothy alfalfa mix usually, sometimes an orchard grass mix as well with Timothy. We feel that, and it's also tested hay, so it's not some ridiculously high sugar stuff. We do make sure that there's enough material in there that they could just live off of that. The grain addition once a day is really, I mean, with water, it's only maybe a third to half of a bucket, like a bucket. And they would get that, and they'd get their extra salt and that kind of thing into their body to go along with the hay. It is a supplement of some sort, so it's not a, I've seen some people feed a full bucket of grain and stuff twice a day or something. Depending on how much your horse works and calories it uses, perhaps that's needed for some, but mostly we just feed hay here. Okay. All right, so there's a few questions in here that talk about horses being hot or not calm, uncontrollable, either under... This is Zeus choking on something here. Hot, not calm, unhandleable, constantly doing something. A great example. Any chance you could explain what to do when your horse isn't calm or sort of hot? My girl will do circles but seems to dart off and run the whole time, and it seems to take forever to get her to settle down enough to work like Luke does. Luke. You put him in an arena with a bunch of other horses. When we get to sort of a group setting, it takes a while to calm that guy down. And the way that I do it is I just keep reverting back to the ABCs. The ABCs for me, in all of the groundwork that I've ever done, check out the playlist of groundwork on YouTube. I'll link to it below for sure. But essentially we're doing circles, half circles, and backing up. And it doesn't need to be big. In fact, the smaller amount of stuff you do, the better. With that, it's super important to provide as much reassurance to them as you can, and that involves just lightly brushing them and petting them, especially on the withers. It's really nice. Don't pat them like, oh, you're a good boy, and bang, 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 bang. That kind of stuff generally doesn't, as I've seen it, and others have, I've talked to others as well, it generally doesn't bring them down. We're looking for quiet, we're looking for soft, any of these things that can just, another thing you can do to get a horse to calm down if you've got this kind of situation is encourage them to find their relaxing position. If you've ever seen a horse relaxed, most likely their head is down. So you'll be working on getting their head down. Either you put a little pressure on the top, or you pull with your halter or whatever you've got on them, and try to release at every opportunity they give you to release, meaning that they might, you know, go down a little, and it might take a little while. You might just be playing with, you know, a ½ inch at a time. Oh, mosquito. But sooner or later it should come down, and in such a case they will find a way to relax, and you'll be looking for that relaxation through either licking their lips, some blinking, taking a breath, yawning, or blowing out their nose. So lots of indications of when a horse is ready to calm down, and you can work with them again. Because like a lot of people say, you know, if there's another one in here. When hand walking my mare, what do I do when she gets flighty, snorty, or things that concern her? I know it reminds me needs to be on me and not those things, but what exactly do I do to accomplish this? So yeah, just keep leading her, stop and let her look, which goes in another question. When you're on a trail ride and you come across something that you didn't want to, what would you do? And what would you do if you were to see a bear? How would you handle that? Well, I've seen a bear out and about when riding. I've seen a few bears. Most of the time you just carry on past. Bears don't want anything to do with you, and you generally don't want anything to do with them. The only real time I think that you would have a concern is if you were in between the bear and its baby. That would be kind of unusual, but could happen. And I mean, in such a case, you'll just kind of keep on going. You'll just try your best to keep on going. And if you feel that maybe the bear is cutting across, and this is a really weird situation. I say this just with the lightest bit of advice. You take this advice and get hurt, still it's on you. But I would turn around and just go the other way. Just head on back, you know. If you feel that worried, I would leave it alone. For things that are more inanimate, things that are scary, a tree on the ground, or I don't know, maybe people on bicycles and stuff like that, and you don't really have the time to manage it, just try to get on by, try to ignore it, you know, if you can. If you're going by and it's over there, you might look over there. Your horse is always looking to see where you're looking. That's why when you ride, people will say, or teachers will say, look where you want to go. So if you want to go that way, you'll look that way. Your horse will know you're looking that way. It'll be the first clue that they should probably be making a turn pretty soon. And then your hands or your legs or something will follow. So to summarize, try not to pay attention to what it is. Try to make nothing of it. Reassure them constantly. You know, you pat them and let them know it's okay. Soft, gentle, quiet, head down. Encourage all the relaxing positions and states that they could be in that you've seen your horse be in. They'll get there. Just sometimes takes time. Go back to the ABCs, groundwork. I'll link that below. Interesting questions. Somebody says, do you let them give kisses to you when you're cuddling them? I recall answering this, and it was something along the lines of, I think kisses are where a horse puts their mouth on you. I generally don't let that happen. Usually, I would say, and this might be a case-by-case thing, so I'm not going to say for sure, but usually if I've ever had a horse kind of nibble at me, kind of nip at my clothes or something like that, it's usually to get me to do something. I try not to let my horses tell me to do things, and that's pretty forward, to put their mouth on you. So no, I don't usually let that happen. What kind of gravel do you use in your paddocks? Crusher dust. It is a very basic gravel. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just sort of a sand with a very small fine gravel mixed in. Seems kind of sharp, not rounded, and it packs. So I get that question a lot. What do you use in your paddocks? It stays quite dry, especially on a grade. I've done a few videos about paddocks and paddock maintenance. Yeah, great stuff, stays dry, drains well, surprisingly, or drains off well, one or the other. and doesn't stay wet per se. So, good for the horses. Some people say that if you use this stuff, it wears their feet down. I wish. No, I've never had that experience with any of the horses here. I trim them more often than I want to. Yeah, and a related question is, how do you find that the sand, well, I'll just read it. Can the sand not irritate some horses' skin if it soaks in? It can, absolutely. Sand can, there goes another one. Sand can irritate the horse's skin if you go and put your saddle pad and your saddle on top and ride them. So if you find that your horse has rolled in some sand and they've done whatever and they've got some sand on their back and stuff, you'll want to get that out as best as you can. Don't leave it in there. It'll be no different than if you put some sand in your sock and you started walking around. Pretty soon you'd be kind of sore. So definitely, yeah, get rid of the sand when riding. But other than that, no, actually they use it for sort of like as a scratching post on the ground. They'll take a sand bath. Very common. In the summertime they'll use it to cool off. And if they can find dirt or mud, even better. It'll almost be a sunscreen. Not the sand though, mud will. But no, I don't believe that the sand irritates their skin any more than anything else that could be on their skin outside of when you put pressure on it, like when you ride them with a saddle on top. Another question about, it's a related one to the one where we're talking about horses being flighty and snorty and stuff. Here's one about being buddy. My horse is great when other horses are around, but it's quite buddy sour. He's perfectly fine and quiet away from the barn or on the trail as long as he has another horse with him. I will do something on the term buddy sour pretty soon, or even barn sour. But it says, but what exactly do I do to accomplish or to get the horse to listen to me? And it's the same thing. The reason that they get this way is because they're very, very worried. And being with just you isn't enough to calm them. So somehow, some way, you have to be able to spend enough time or do enough things with them to where when they're with you, it's enough and it's good enough that they're not going to be scared or worried enough to call out or freak out and want to get back home as fast as possible. So that takes time, and it's just a repeat of all the groundwork and the relaxing techniques that I've already mentioned and are in the playlist below. Okay, bunch of other questions in here. I do think we're running low on time. Yeah, we've already come along a little ways. I want to cover the last question, which is there's piles of them in here. I get this a lot. Can I ask why you ride in just a rope halter and not any other sort of bitless bridle? I do ride in other bitless bridles at Hackamore. I'm going to cover the first part in a second because there's other ones. Do you generally trail ride with a bit or bitless? Almost always bitless. A lot of people say the bit hurts the horse. Can you get collected movement if you only ever use a rope halter? Have you ever done a video on your thoughts on bits? No, I haven't yet. I really want to do it right. And there's a lot, very controversial subject, just like keeping horses barefoot or shoeing them. Everybody's got an opinion on these things, and it's quite polarizing. So what I will say is that I rarely use, mosquitoes are everywhere. I rarely use a bit. If I do, it's by request. But I don't feel like I need a bit. Do I think I can get collection without a bit? Absolutely, 100%. And the reason is horses collect themselves just fine with nothing on. In fact, you'll find many videos out there where people have learned how to figure out how to collect their horse up using nothing. In fact, they won't even have a saddle, and they'll get their horse looking really, really sharp. And they don't need a bit. So yes, I do believe that just about anything can be done bitless. But I'm not a promoter of... I'm not a promoter of absolutely no bits because everybody has their own comfort level, and what is good for the rider can be good for the horse. Do bits hurt? Yes, absolutely they hurt, especially in the wrong hands. If you think about where it sits, there is a very thin layer of skin in between the bit and the bone underneath. In fact, bits were created for this very purpose, in that if it hurts, they'll pay attention. So It doesn't mean that rope halters don't hurt, or hackamores don't hurt, or side pulls don't hurt, because in the wrong hands, all of these things can hurt. So anybody who kind of stands on a pedestal and says, well, I don't use a bit, so I'm not hurting my horse, I don't believe that either. Is it a lesser of two evils? Yeah, kinda, in my mind, but that also depends on the rider. So I ride bitless because I prefer it. Most of the horses that I have experienced do better without a bit. Whether that's a fluke, what that has exactly to do with, I think I might cover more in another more scientific video. This is more anecdotal. This is my opinion, my experience, and the people that I have talked to who have had the same experiences sort of mirror these impressions that I have based on what they've experienced. But I by no means whatsoever I'm trying to say that I am any bit better because I ride bitless and it doesn't hurt the horse. Not true at all. Not true at all. When anything that sits on the bridge of the nose or under the chin, if you take your own body, for example, and you just put a piece of rope across your nose, just use your nail and press on there. It takes very little pressure to hurt. Same thing for under the chin. Those straps that come in, or people that put a chain underneath here, that chain's there for a reason. Chain over the nose, chain's there for a reason. Because even if you just take your nail and push on that bone, because you only have that little bit of skin there, it hurts. So anything on the horse's face can hurt. And so what we're really looking for, this question shouldn't be about bitless or bitted. It should be, how on earth do you get it so where you have to put almost no pressure on any head stall, any halter or bridle or bit or rawhide or anything that you stick on the horse's face. How can you use as little pressure as possible? That should be the conversation that should be had, not about whether or not you're using a bit or not. So I hope to cover that more. I know that's kind of leaving it a little hanging, but that's my opinion on it. Hopefully that helps some of you and gives you some thoughts. If you have any questions, of course, ask. I am fully open to any thoughts or ideas that people have that either they can conflict or agree or question, because I too I am constantly questioning what I'm doing, whether it's the right thing, whether it's the best thing, whether I can do better. And so that involves listening to others and talking with others, which I do daily. So hopefully that's been a pretty good FAQ. I think we're running on almost 20 minutes now, and a little longer than I expected, but I think it could be useful. Hopefully start up some discussion, and hopefully you've enjoyed Lena in the background eating. We will get to riding her soon. I assure you, she is amazing under saddle. A lot of fun. Just a lack of time to get around to messing around with her. So she's a favorite. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys again soon.